Flags. Oh, recording in progress.
I know Camp Verde. I know Camp Verde. We have camped up there, and we have family in Prescott. We just got back from there, and yeah, lots of snow and lots of snow at the Grand Canyon. Weird.
You just came back from Prescott?
Yeah, like 2 days ago, maybe.
Oh wow. Okay.
And there was snow everywhere. I had to buy those little grippy things that go on the bottom of your shoes, so I didn't slide around on the ice.
Yeah.
And that was Arizona. So
okay. I love Arizona though. It's unique. I love the saguaro cactus and
yes.
yeah, it's so beautiful. They have a bunch of that over there in New River in the Sonoran Desert. But my folks are still they're in Rimrock, which is going on the way to Sedona. So it's between Camp Verde and Sedona.
Camp Verde and Sedona. We used to camp as a family at a place called Lolomai, and it was also like basically between Camp Verde and Sonoma.
Oh,
Sonoma? Sorry, I didn't mean Sonoma.
Oh, that's okay. Sedona. Yeah.
Sedona, thank you.
That's okay. No, I don't think I've heard of that campground. No.
Oh yeah, it's really nice. It's fun. It's a really good, and it's got cabins and place where you can do a tent, or you can bring your RV. So whatever it is you got, you can go to Lolomai.
And what is it called again?
Lolomai. LOLOMAI, or something along that line. Yeah. Oh yeah, look it up.
I hadn't heard of that one before. Have you ever been to Montezuma Well there in Lake Montezuma?
No.
Oh, that is a really beautiful place to go visit.
Montezuma Well. Okay, I'll go check that out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we go pretty frequently, at least to Arizona, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Montezuma's Well is worth it. And it's like a big lake. I mean, it's more like you can see all of it. And all around the cliffs on the sides of the well, it's just there are Indian ruins where the Indians used to live around there. And actually the well used to be covered, and the top of it broke through, and you could see a bunch of the rocks on the side. And the water comes from way up along Mogollon Rim and trickles all the way down, created that well. And so the well, nothing sustains it and comes up, but yet no life can live in it except some kind of parasites, and I think some turtles, but yet some kind, not parasites, but they're those little wiggly things that live in there. They're some kind of a life form that lives in there. I don't think it's called parasites, because parasites have a bad name.
Hello. It sounds like we need to have a harp camping weekend sometime, don't you think?
Ooh, there you go.
We'll bring our small harps and play some music outside.
Yes,
that's a dream for the future.
Great idea.
A harp retreat.
Yeah. But imagine we're all camping. That would be a whole different thing.
Yeah, that would be really great.
Are a lot of people going to Somerset? Are you going to be there, Christy-Lyn?
Not this time. No.
Yeah, I saw you were there last time. That's why I wondered.
Yeah,
of course,
I'd
because
love to go again.
You have other things to do, and happy pregnancy.
Yes, I'll have a tiny little
congratulations.
baby.
Congratulations.
My little daughter is expecting too, so that's exciting.
Oh, lovely.
Your baby will have ear training from pre-birth. How sweet.
Yes.
When are you due, Christy-Lyn?
I'm due early May, so we'll see. You know, when it's your first baby, they tend to come late. So who knows? It could be mid-May, or it could be April.
What a wonderful time to have a baby. Lovely.
Well, in South Africa, it's autumn. So I actually do think it's a very nice time, because it means that we can, be cuddled up, and it doesn't get too crazy cold here in Cape Town. So I think it's a pretty mild winter. So we'll be able to, when I'm sitting inside and looking after a baby, it's probably nice that the weather's not too great outside.
I was gonna say that's good. You can miss the heat of summer, but that's right. We're swapped. You're already going through the heat of summer, aren't you?
Yeah, but thankfully I'm not at my hugest during the heat of summer because it's already been quite a challenge, even at just 6 months pregnant or 7 months. But I think when you're literally about to pop and it's very, very hot, I can only imagine.
I had one early September, and I'm in Las Vegas, and it was awful.
Oh,
Awful.
I'm sure. Yeah. Anyway, we should probably get to talking about practice.
Yeah.
And welcome back, everybody. It's really nice to see you come back, and we've already had quite a few questions come in, but you can pop questions in the chat, and Carrie is with us. Do you want to say hi again, Carrie?
Hello.
Hi, Carrie.
Hello. Good to see everyone again.
So I'm really glad to have Carrie with us in the sessions because it's kind of hard for me to keep track of slides and comments and all of these things. So it's been so helpful. Thank you, Carrie, for being here. And so that's how we're going to do it, is we're going to still pop the questions into the chat. But what I thought would be really nice is it's so nice hearing all your voices chatting at the beginning of the session. And it's so nice when we just feel like we're real people talking and not just me reading out people's questions. So what I would like to do in this session is when you pop your chat in the comment, I'm going to, or when I get to your question, let's put it that way, I'm going to ask if you are willing to say it. So we can see your face and we can actually hear that you're a real person. You don't have to, though. If you've put your question in the chat and you don't want to say it, then just don't appear and I will read out your question and I'll answer it from there. But it's always so much nicer when you can see it's not just me here. There's a group of us. So let me do my little screen share and... Oh, okay, hold on a second. Every now and then the technology eludes me. Okay, we're almost there. Because I made a fancy slide, so you have to see it now. Otherwise, all my time is for nothing. Normally it's Kevin who makes things look pretty, but I did my best. So there we go. Q&A, but can I really do this? So today, now in this session, there's not many slides because it's a Q&A session. So we'll be looking at some of the questions that have come up over the past 2 sessions and any questions that you still have remaining that you haven't asked yet, you can pop in the chat. And it's a chance for us to uncover anything that might be holding you back from seeing real progress in your practice. So as far as we can, within an hour session, we're going to chat through things and we're going to try and get you what you need. Of course, to actually help train you in deliberate practice, that's why I've got a whole 6 weeks set aside for that. But we have an hour now and we'll do what we can with the time we have. And yeah, I just said this is where the good stuff really happens and it starts to feel real, because it's one thing for me to just be waffling on about practice and how it's going to make a difference. But we want to also get to the nitty gritty of what do I do? What about me? I have this struggle, or tell me again how this also applies to me. So that's what we're going to be doing. And I'm not going to be sharing slides the whole time. So I think that's enough of that. And I'm going to start by having a look at some of the questions that came up already in the earlier sessions, and then we'll just take it from there. So I'm going to put them on the side. So if you see me looking on the side, that's just me looking at your questions. So I'm trying to think where to start. I liked this question. It's a little bit... it's not exactly what I was talking about today, but it's a very real, honest question, and I like that. It's from Julie, and it's about being critical of yourself. Julie, are you here? Do you want to tell us about that question? Maybe, because I think this was a question from the last session, so maybe I should just read it out. Okay, so Julie said, oh, are you here, Julie?
Yes, sorry, I was just trying to
Yes,
unmute
go for
myself.
it.
Yes, I've always, as I said, I am a perfectionist, and I know it's unfortunately because I'm like that, it's a hindering thing. And so I'm extremely critical of myself, and it's something I'm still struggling with, if that makes any sense. So if I actually do something and it just isn't right, I get really frustrated with myself. And if I do something really good and somebody listens and say, oh, that's really good, and I just said, no, it's actually was rubbish, which is not
Sure.
really good. I don't know why. I think maybe it's probably lack of self-esteem. So, and I'm not used to having compliments. So
Yeah.
I'm not very good at taking them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So that's why I
Well,
thought the course will hopefully help give me some
yeah.
strategies as well.
So I think some of that is like we were talking about earlier in the earlier session, we were talking about like reframing what are we actually aiming for. So that would be part of it, because if we think we're aiming for something that sounds perfect, and I mean I talk about this with performance anxiety as well. I don't think of a successful performance as one where I played perfectly. So I've reframed the way that I try to aim for my performance. And even when I imagine what the performance is going to be like, I'm not imagining myself playing perfectly. I'm imagining that I play and I might make a few mistakes and I get through it and it's good anyway, and the people enjoy it and it's a positive experience, because most of the time, even when we don't play perfectly, the people enjoy it and it's a positive experience if we can allow ourselves to let go of aiming for perfection. I just saw Mary nodding there, and I was thinking, like, I did a big performance with Joshua Aaron when Mary was there, and she was witness to me making mistakes in front of lots of people, and it was okay. So I think that's one part of it, is kind of re-looking at what we are actually aiming for or what we think of as perfect. And when it comes to our practice time as well, do we think of a good practice session as one where we could get it right the first time? Or are we aiming for something where we can show that we've got resilience, like, or, there's other things that we can be aiming towards. So that's a part of it. Some of it could be things you need to, we all have things we need to work through, and whether that's chatting to somebody about it, or there could be deeper stuff to work through, but obviously that's beyond the scope of me talking about practice. But another thing that did come to mind when I saw your question is, I don't know if you've seen the YouTube video where I talked about toxic thoughts. Have you heard me talking about that before, Julie?
I think, yes,
Maybe watch
long
that over
time ago
again.
now. Yeah, because I mean,
Yeah.
recently I played the guitar at our church service, and all I can remember and I can hear in my ear is the D that I put in because my fingers were all very sore, and I actually slightly had the is off. So all I can still remember and hearing it,
Mm,
and I'm
yeah.
focusing on that, which I probably shouldn't do.
Yeah. And I think part of that is also just training our brains to say different things to ourselves.
Yeah,
So that's what I talked about in that Toxic Thoughts YouTube
yeah,
video. And it's looking at, okay, what are the things I tend to say to myself? Because the reason it's about like toxic thoughts, there's a lot of like neuroscience around this, that actually when we say negative things to ourselves, it literally breaks down that if we're learning something, it can break down those pathways that we've just created in our brains. Like, when your brain is like growing new things, it's like it grows a little broccoli, like a little tree. And then when you say a negative thing, it can literally, that little tree dies. It's like
yeah,
you can actually feel, I've seen it in lessons with students where they're doing something and I can see they're learning, but it's not perfect yet. And then they say, I can't do it. And then suddenly they much worse than they were before, because it
yeah,
literally affects our brains. So that's what that video is talking about, and saying that there's different people that help with that. Like Caroline Leaf has written a lot about that, and you can actually practice noticing when you say those things to yourself and then preparing things to say instead.
yeah,
So
yeah,
instead of saying, I can't do this, you can say to yourself, this is a challenge, but I'm persistent, and you can actually literally practice saying those things, even though it feels silly at first. So that's another idea. But I think there's a lot of different ways to approach that. And for some of us, it's a a lifelong struggle that's not easily fixed with one little YouTube video or something. But
I keep reminding
yeah.
myself about James 5, where there's, about the tongue.
Yes.
And say, if you say something that's positive, then that's beneficial for you. And if you say
Yeah.
something that's not, then actually it's negative for you. So I have to keep reminding myself that there's
Yeah.
power in what
So
you say.
I would suggest writing down the things you tend to be hard on yourself about, and then write a list of what's also true but positive, and then try and see if you can say those things instead. But it's a process. So all the
Yeah.
best with that. But it sounds like you're at least, you're aware of it. That's a
I'm
starting
better
point.
than I have improved. I used to be
Yeah.
extremely critical, and now I am improving, and say,
Well done.
I have to be
Keep
kind
it
to
up.
myself, which I learned from you.
There's so many people here who I'm sure are relating to what you're saying. So it's not just you, and it's a journey. We can
Yeah,
encourage
thank
each
you.
other. Okay, so those who are putting up hands, just put your question in the chat, and then Carrie's going to field them for me, because I just want to make sure that I'm choosing to do things in a good order and the ones that apply to everybody. So let me keep going. Another question. Maybe I'll just run through a few of them without asking, so just so we can make sure we get to quite a few. I'll run through some without asking the person to say it. So a couple of people were asking about, does it help to learn music theory to play the harp better? And so this person in particular said, I don't want to overstrain my brain cells, which I thought was a cool way of putting it. So when we were looking at the concept of deliberate practice, and the part where you need to be able to give yourself feedback on what you're doing right or what you need to fix, and also the part where it was saying that you need input from an expert teacher, which we were saying, it's not only through lessons, there's other ways you can do that as well. So music theory is a way for you to increase your knowledge of music so that you know how to fix things, or you have a bit more knowledge about what you're doing, right? So I see it as a means to an end. And when you're in the beginning of your harp journey, I wouldn't go like focusing so much on music theory that it overstrains your brain cells. I think in the beginning particularly, it's much more natural to learn it as you need it. And as you learn each new piece, you're learning just about the time signature of that piece, or you have to play a piece that is in a different key, and then you learn, oh, G major is with F sharps. That's learning music theory. All of these things are music theory. So generally how I've approached it with students is just letting them learn what they need to know to understand the piece they're currently working on. But yes, music theory is helpful. I just wouldn't think of it as, I think sometimes people think of music theory as something that like separates the normal people from the people who really know, and so it feels like this big deal that I have to accomplish music theory, but actually it's just knowledge that grows over time as you learn more about music. So that's how I normally approach it, but who knows, maybe at some point I'll do a course on music theory. But for now I would say just learn it gradually as you go, and I think that's totally fine. Okay, so I like this one from Alessio. Is Alessio here? That was cool. So Alessio said, it would be interesting also to talk about when it's the time to practice and when it's the time to enjoy playing the harp. So I thought that was a very good point, because when I'm talking about deliberate practice, it's because if you're calling it practice, then you're working to fix something. But that doesn't mean that you only ever practice. That's not the only thing we do with our harp. We also just play it. We play it for fun. We play pieces we already know. We enjoy playing for other people. So yes, we can't only practice, and especially if our practicing is effective and focused and attention, and if that's the only thing we do, then we're going to be missing out on a lot of the joy of playing. So that's a really good point. Thanks for pointing that out, Alessio, that sometimes we just play our harps and that's not practice. Okay. Let's see. So oh yeah, someone else was also saying, should we separate practice time from playing time, for example, playing through a whole piece? So yes, that's exactly what Alessio was talking about. Okay, there's a couple of questions just about the logistics of the program. So I just wanted to mention those so that people can get those answers. Some people are struggling to use credits to purchase, and you can email hello@learningtheharp and hello@learningtheharp.com. And then apparently Kev is waiting there to help you. And then some people were asking about the sessions, and you can check at the bottom of the sales page, like the time of the sessions. You can check at the bottom of the sales page because it's different for different time zones. But basically, the sessions are for the Transforming Practice program are the same time as this last session we're doing now, but it will change at some point because it's over the time of daylight savings changing. so it's going to change at one point for Europeans and then change at another point for Americans, and it stays the same for me. So that's not an easy answer. Okay. Oh, this person, I think Carrie's just working very hard to keep up, so I don't see a name next to this one. But someone was asking about musical line and it's sounding clunky. Who was that? And are you here? Maybe we can hear from you.
Yes, that was Margot. I'm here.
Oh, hi, Margot. Yes,
Hi.
talk to us.
So when I play, and then I record, it just like the downbeats are too strong, or it's not musical to me. And I don't know if that's a technique thing or I'm not a good musician. That's what I tell myself. And I'd love to know if the deliberative practice could help me with that.
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, if it was because you're not a good musician, you wouldn't be able to hear it.
Thank you.
So that's not why. Because the first step to being able to play musically is to learn what you're listening for, and you've already got that. So well done. And that's definitely something you can practice with deliberate practice. There's actually a week in the program where we're going to look at that. But basically it comes down to, remember when if you were at the session where I was talking about Miss P, which is not her real name, but Miss P helping me practice small sessions of the piece and really like drilling it into me. A lot of the time what she was focusing on was musicality. So she would take one phrase and say, these notes have to be louder than those notes. And then she would make me do that over and over and do deliberate practice with that. So whatever you can hear that doesn't sound musical to you, that becomes that micro goal, that small goal that you're doing for that small part of the piece. And so deliberate practice doesn't only apply to playing the right notes or playing with the right rhythm. It also applies to how you play with musicality. How loud do I want this note to be? Or how do I phrase this? Am I going to get gradually louder or gradually softer? Or even the balance between the two hands, or whatever it is that you're hearing, just break it down into a very small part of your piece and look at exactly what you want to work on there. And it could be that part of it is also related to technique, because we need to not only be able to hear what we want, but we need to be able to control our fingers to be able to actually produce that. So it could be that it's like a mechanical thing that you haven't got that control in your fingers yet. And I don't know what point you're at in your harp journey, but some of that just happens over time. As you start learning more complex pieces, your fingers get more used to, just gradually spending more time on the strings, and your fingers get used to that motion. But it is also something you can work on like the strength of your fingers with some exercises, or you can spend specific time trying to see how loud can I play, how soft can I play, can I make a big obvious difference between those things, and just learning to control your hands. But that won't be an instant thing. Like you can hear it instantly, but sometimes our fingers can't do what our ears want to hear, so it can be a process as well. But it's definitely not because you're just not musical.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think you're on the right track. It's awesome that you're wanting to do that. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, this one is Jeanette saying, will some of them I'm just reading out because I feel like it's just a clear question. Will this course incorporate practicing technique or just general practice? So there's a week about exercises and warm-ups, but specifically I think what you'll find useful is the exercises part. So the way I approach exercises, and so this I'm saying this a little bit more because it will help the rest of you, even if you're not planning to come to the 6-week program. Exercises are not just a means; they're not an end to themselves. I don't do exercises because I want to feel like I'm a proper harpist and I need to do an exercise every time I practice. I do exercises to achieve certain goals, like with my technique, or so that I can do this in my piece. And yes, so there will be a week where we talk about that and how to choose exercises that will help you get the results you need for your harp playing. And that includes, like, exercises that will help you work on your hand position or whatever it is about your technique you want to change. But it's definitely something that you can practice very intentionally, and exercises are a good way to do that. But I don't do the drilling people with exercises just because. Okay. Okay, let's hear from the person who was asking about setting up your practice space. Who is that? And that you don't have a lot of room to practice. Someone sent
Yes,
me a question.
I have a harp which is set up in a little corner between my piano and my sofa, and there's really not a good space to put a music stand at the right angle, or I haven't found a chair that's the right height, and it's just very difficult to, even when I have time to sit there and mess around, it's not comfortable. It's not efficient. It's not, just the body and the space don't fit together. How I could throw away some furniture, that would help. But there's not a lot of room, not a lot of flexibility there. So what would you, I could show you pictures sometime privately, but it's just,
Yeah, that's a
what do
challenge.
you, and how do you do that? I mean,
What I've found is that it can be a huge hurdle to get over having to set things up every time, or unpack your harp, or you're not comfortable in your space, and then by the time you sort out all of that, you've like used up most of the time you had to practice. So it sounds like it could be this could be something that you really need to see if you can get creative with, and even if it does mean that you have one less couch or something like that. I mean, it depends on how much you want this, right? But for me, that would be a very big, you don't need a room, like you don't need a whole room for your harp. What you need is just a space where your harp is set up with a music stand, and you don't have to go through all of that before you can even practice. If you're able to just sit down at your harp and practice, that's going to be so much easier to find the motivation to practice. So whether it means shuffling things around or moving something to a different room or whatever it takes, I think that would be worth getting creative with, Carol, because that could be a big hindrance to feeling the motivation to practice when you feel like the space is not working for you. But it doesn't need to be a whole room. I'm
okay.
jealous of the people who have a whole room. In my
Someone
house,
has
we have a little
suggested,
2-bedroom place, so.
yeah, somebody's suggesting using my piano bench. The problem is I'm short and my harp is, I don't know if it's the right size. I don't know how to adjust, say, my line of sight with the top of the harp or the strings to make it convenient, to do that. So is there some sort of guidelines about that? Because I can put the harp on a platform, or I have a little stool that is kind of as low as I can get it, and it still doesn't feel right. So trying to figure out the
Yeah, that's something
relation
that
between.
is kind of a process of trial and error. There are some guidelines you can look at. Like I have a YouTube video. What is it called? But it is looking at the height of your harp. I can't remember what it's called. Carrie, how busy are you with checking the chat? Do you remember that video that I talked about where it's like
Playing without
bet-
paying?
I bet if you just searched learning the harp, like seated position at the harp or like arm position, something would come up along those lines.
yeah,
Okay.
it's something to
Can
do with
remind
like hacks for your harp technique or something you didn't think about. Oh, I can't remember.
I can
I'm
do
so
a quick
sorry.
search.
But if you
See if I can-
if you look and you can't find it, then maybe email us.
Okay.
But it is also something that we work on a lot if you're at the beginning of your harp journey, then that's something that Carrie often helps people with, either in feedback videos or if people can afford to come for a lesson, or actually in the Harp Beginnings program. We spend a lot of time looking at your height at the harp and adjusting things for people and helping them with feedback. But yeah, that is something that you would want to see if you can have a session, a spot where you are set up well with your chair and your harp and your music stand. I think it's going to make a big difference. Yeah.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks for asking. Oops. Oh, sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. You don't need to unmute again, Carol. Okay, so let's see. Some more questions about the course, but let's find another one that will apply to everybody. Okay, this is an interesting one. So this person asked, if you're doing multiple practice sessions a day, do you need to warm up each time you practice? So if you're doing what I suggested, where I said, oh, just practice as long as you can focus. Don't practice for 2 hours, because if you stop focusing after 20 minutes, then you actually just wasted an hour and 40 minutes. But then if you practice for 20 minutes or 10 minutes and you practice again for 10 minutes later, what does that mean about warm-ups? So I'm going to explain more about my approach to warm-ups, just like with the exercises in that part of the program. But basically my approach to warm-ups is similar to what I said with exercises. I think some people think of warm-ups as like, ooh, if I'm not doing a warm-up, then I'm not a proper harpist, or I'm not doing a proper practice session. And I very frequently practice without warming up, but because I feel like warm-ups are related to what you need to be able to practice the piece that you're doing and to look after your body and get your mind ready. So if you're playing something that is not super taxing on your muscles of your body, like if I'm not playing something that requires a lot of dexterity in my fingers, then, and it's quite slow, then I don't need to warm up my fingers in that way, because my fingers are not holding me back. But if I'm feeling a lot of tension in my body and that's going to affect the way I'm playing, then I need to deal with that tension before I can play properly. So when it comes to warm up, I know some of us are a bit older, and then maybe your fingers are feeling a bit stiff. So then that would be a reason to warm up, so that that doesn't hold you back from your playing. So it needs to be a means to an end of what you're trying to do with your practice to protect your body and get your mind in the right place and your body in the right space. So if you feel that you need to warm up again because it's been a cold day and your fingers are stiff, then you need to warm up your fingers again. But if you are feeling like your body is ready to go, and your mind is in a good space, then you don't need to feel like you should warm up again. So that's how I would approach warm-ups, it's just check in with where you're at. And then you don't have to do the same thing every time. Sometimes you might find that your fingers are still warm from the last session, but perhaps there's some small quick things that you can do to warm them up quickly if you need that. Sometimes I feel a little bit like nervous saying those kind of things because I know there's so many people who are very passionate about warm-ups, and I think that's coming from often from a space where if you're preparing to do things that are really taxing on your body, then it is very serious. Like you could hurt yourself if you're not warmed up properly. But when we're learning really basic pieces and we don't have a problem with our fingers being stiff, then we could actually spend that time practicing, because the piece that you're learning that is slow and simple, another person would use as a warm-up. So your practice could be someone else's warm-up. So then it's just what we're calling it, right? Okay. So there's a question about learning by ear rather than by sheet music. So these practice concepts will also apply to learning by ear. When I was telling my story, it was very related to sheet music because that's how I've generally learned, and sometimes it's harder for me to learn by ear. But it's not only something that applies to music, but when people were learning it for chess or sports, they use deliberate practice, and those things don't even have sheet music. So it definitely applies if you're just learning by ear. It's more about focusing on the small thing you want to get better, giving yourself the feedback, learning what can help you to fix these things, and then applying it consistently with a lot of repetition. And then they were saying, what lessons of yours are best to purchase for those who don't read sheet music? So all the courses that we do, that Carrie's been creating with learning songs, all of those we do in a way that you can learn without sheet music. So whichever one feels like it's at the right level for you right now and you like the sound of it, that's the best one for you. They're all possible to learn by ear. But if you want something that's easier to memorize, then you can choose ones that when you listen to the recording, it has more repetition. That might be easier to learn by ear, but they all have what they need in the courses without sheet music. Okay. Let's see if there's one where we can hear someone's voice other than mine again. Let's chat a bit about recording yourself. That's not something that I spoke about today, but Melanie had a question about that. Is Melanie here? Can we hear that question from you?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you had any tips on recording yourself for, practice purposes, getting some self-feedback, checking on your own technique. But also I've tried just to share on Facebook or something with a few friends, songs that I felt I had mastered, but if you make one mistake, I feel like I have to record the entire thing all over again. And so I played the same song like 100 times that day, which drove me crazy. So I don't know if you have any basic tips on like super easy editing software or super easy setups of like, I don't know, do you always put the microphone inside the harp or just use your phone? What basic tips for beginning recorders would you have for that?
Are you recording just audio or video as well?
Both.
Both. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's nice if you can record video as well, because then you can also see your hands and your body and what you maybe didn't realize was happening with your technique. Can be such a great way to give yourself feedback. So there's kind of two different reasons for recording that you're talking about there. Melanie, that's the one is to record so that you can give yourself feedback during your practice time, and that is such a good idea, because especially if you're working on your own without a teacher, sometimes what we think we're doing is quite different to what we're really doing, and you can only hear that when you have a moment to step back and listen to yourself. I was quite shocked when I recorded myself for YouTube many times, or even just, I don't know, recording myself just as part of practice. And then Actually, I think it started because I would play something in my lesson with that very first harp teacher of mine, and she would say, but I don't hear any like dynamics at all. And I was like horrified because I felt like I was putting all the emotion and feeling into it, and I was doing louds and softs and crescendos and decrescendos, and she just told me she didn't hear anything, and I felt like she's just like, are we on the same planet? So I would recorded myself, and I discovered that everything that was inside my brain was not coming out on the harp, and that on the harp, compared to piano or singing, you have to be so much more dramatic with your dynamics. Then I just couldn't believe it. So it really is very helpful to record yourself, to give yourself feedback if you want to practice effectively. So I would highly recommend that, and just record on your phone with your phone recorder. It's like, it's good enough. You'll still be able to hear that you're playing, like my teacher said, flat as a pancake. That's what she would say if I didn't put dynamics into my playing. You're playing flat as a pancake. I never want to. She even told me, because she knew I started lessons with her when she was 87, so she knew that she wasn't going to be around forever. And she said, if I ever hear you playing flat as a pancake, I'm going to come back and get you, even if I'm dead. So it was very important to her that I didn't play flat as a pancake. But yeah, recording myself really helped with that. But, you know, I don't think now's the space to get into the details of like very high quality recordings if you're wanting to do that. But what I usually say when you're recording yourself and videos, sharing with people, I would just use the equipment that you have, use the best camera you have. Phones are plenty good enough these days. And it's more important, I think, to have good lighting than to have an excellent camera. So just face a window, that should be good. And then with the sound, I don't think we need to get into the details of recording, but I don't put a microphone inside my harp when I record for videos. I have a microphone separate to my camera, but it's on the outside. But maybe that's something we can do some. I know Carrie has gone a lot into helping people learn recording and things, so maybe we need to do a workshop on that sometime. But when it comes to practice, yes, just record with whatever you've got, and it will really help to give yourself feedback. Okay. There's some people asking questions about learning to read sheet music, like about intervals and things like that. So I don't think I'll get into that today, but there's also someone asking about the Unlocking Sheet Music course and whether we'll be doing that again. And we are planning to do that course again, probably in the next few months. So probably towards the middle of the year. We still need to figure out exactly what it's going to look like. It will probably be a combination of recordings of me and Carrie doing it because I'll be on maternity leave. But there will be the chance if you want to do a 6-week program on learning sheet music. But I don't think I'll get into the intricacies of intervals and things today. But yeah. Oh, that's a nice question, but I don't know how many people are interested in practicing the voice and the harp together. I'm like so tempted to spend time on that question, Kate, because that was like my first reason for even wanting to play the harp in the first place. So my teacher, I'll try and be short because I can't resist that question, even though it probably won't apply to most of you. But my teacher told me that I needed to be because she didn't sing and play, but she told me I need to be so familiar with the harp part that I could play that automatically and not think about it, so that I could think about the singing. But I found that for myself, it was often the other way around. I needed to know the song so well that I didn't have to think about the singing so much, so I could focus on the harp, because that was the part that was more new to me. So yeah, I think it's a combination of being very familiar with both the singing and the harp. And then you can probably break it down as well. Do little small sections of singing and harp, and don't think that it will just automatically come together. But my biggest thing for singing and harp is I don't play from sheet music. I just need to play very simple things from chords so that I don't have to concentrate too hard on playing the perfect notes.
Exactly.
Anyway, but
Thank you.
yeah, Kate, we could talk about it so much, but unfortunately,
Okay, thank you. So maybe on the course.
I don't know. I think we need to make more of a space for people who are learning to sing and play together,
Yes.
because I know it's not for everybody. So whenever we have a big group, there's going to be like 70% of the people who aren't interested, and then we can't talk too long about it. But maybe
Thank
we'll do
you.
some more workshops or something on singing and harp. I think that would be great.
Good, thanks.
Okay, so someone's asking another question about the 6-week program. I just signed up and I'm looking forward to it. I wonder if we should have a list of pieces we want to learn, or you be providing the content to be practicing. That is a very good practical question. One of the things we're going to do in week 1 is you're going to choose a piece or a couple of pieces that you're going to work on. So it is going to be from your own choice. There's not going to be like specific content that I'm giving you to practice, because that wouldn't apply to everybody. So if you're wanting to start preparing, because it's starting in 2.5 weeks, you can maybe start looking at something that is brand new, something that you're currently working on that it needs some work. That I would just suggest start looking out for some things you can work on. And okay, I want to see if there's another practical question.
I just added a few at the top.
Oh, did you? Thanks, Carrie. Okay, that's more related to the 6-week course. I want to find one about practice so I can give everyone some useful stuff again. There were a couple of people asking about how often I would suggest that you have an in-person lesson. How often is it advisable to have a lesson, and how long should the lesson be? So
that was
you're
me.
talking to somebody who's not gonna, is that Natasha? Hi, Natasha.
Thanks for answering.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Thanks for the question. So I've made it my mission to help people who, many of them can't have regular lessons. So I'm always going to say that you don't absolutely have to. But if it is something that you can afford and you would like to do, then I think it is very helpful to have weekly lessons. I enjoyed that. So what I did and what I offered when I was teaching one-to-one lessons was like an hour or 55 minutes so that I had time to go to the bathroom before the next student. And yeah, it can be really, really helpful. For a lot of people find that that's the way to keep motivated, because you know that your teacher's going to be there next week and they're going to give you that, expert input that is needed for effective practice. So it is really great if you can do that. But also we've found that people have made amazing progress from learning from our courses without a teacher. So if that's something that's out of reach for you, I don't want people to feel discouraged that they can't learn if they can't afford weekly lessons, because we found that it's really basically what the courses do is they guide you through practicing effectively, kind of with like deliberate practice. And if you go to weekly lessons and you don't practice well in between, you're practicing with not effective practice strategies, or you're not motivated to practice, you're going to see very limited progress. But if you can have something that's helping you, like our courses is one thing that you can go through, that's actually guiding you through making sure that every practice session during the week is effective. And then what we found is that people can do check-ins, like with Carrie, they'll check in on how they're doing with their progress, like once a month or even once a quarter or something like that. And it's amazing to see how people are progressing without lessons. So it is good, and also it's not the only way, which is amazing.
It's been really inspiring hearing your approach, because it really can help you turn your practice on its head. You don't need to practice in a particular set way your whole life. You can look at online material, you can take your courses, you can then do a reference lesson maybe once a month or something. And I really like the fact of having a teacher just to help point out something. But actually, if you're going to your course and you're actually getting all those tips and tricks and you just need to apply them yourself, you're you're getting that addictive result that you talked about, which has always been difficult, and warm-ups and exercises just to really help you hone in on a particular thing rather than just for the sake of warming up or doing exercises. It's really made me think a lot, and I think I'm going to enjoy practicing a lot more. So thank you.
Oh, great. Thanks, Natasha. You gave me a little boost of encouragement there. That's really sweet. Yeah, but that's, I mean, it's the truth. I've seen people who have weekly lessons and they don't make progress because it's not only what's happening, it's not the teacher who makes you progress. And then I've seen other people who like so conscientiously apply what is taught in our courses, and when they come to, when I was teaching one-to-one lessons, I had someone come to me for lessons because they were like, I'm ready for lessons now, I've been learning from your courses, and honestly I told her, you don't need lessons because you're doing so well with your practice just with the courses. I don't want to waste your money. She still wanted lessons, so I was like, okay, well, I'll help you. but it is incredible. We've had quite a few people who are so good at applying what's taught in the courses that when they go to an in-person teacher, the teacher cannot believe that they're self-taught. So there really is hope for those of us who lessons are a bit out of reach, weekly lessons particularly. Okay, and this is a great question. Is it the same Natasha?
Oh, hello. I put a couple on there.
Oh, such a great question, Natasha. You have to speak to us again. Is it you saying, is it too late to change technique?
Yeah, so my very, very brief story is I learned between the ages of 5 and 15, gave up, and then I bought a 3/4 size pedal harp in my 20s, played it for a bit on and off, more off than on. And then in 2017, I bought my Selby Daphne behind me, which it's a 47 EX. I love it. It's got a beautiful sound, and it's been in a communal area until about 2 months ago, and I've put it into my own space, and I'm playing it non-stop. But I'm looking at like the way you play and the way you hold your hands, and I always thought my technique I don't think is bad. You know, I definitely play with the right angle, but it's not as smooth looking as you. When I see a video of myself, I go, oh my God, it doesn't look like that. So I'm thinking like 4 decades of knowing how to do one thing. I don't know if I can do it differently. So I wanted your professional view on that.
Well, my hands don't look like other people's hands either. So that would be the first thing, is that because I mentioned at one point in my story when I was watching YouTube videos to try and get that expert input when I wasn't getting it. And one of the people who I was learning from was Josh Lane, who's amazing with technique, but I feel like his fingers are probably double the length of mine because it looks so different when he plays the harp compared to me. And so I had to realize that I'm not going to look like Josh Lane when I play with good technique. It's going to look very different. So that would be my caution. Like one example is I have very small hands, but in comparison to my fingers, my thumbs are really long. So when I do thumbs up and fingers down, it looks like I'm going crazy high with my thumbs. But I don't know if you've ever been in one of those like, what is it called? Icebreaker things where everyone compares the size of their hands and then you got to stand in a line. I'm usually like the second smallest hand, but then I've been in one session where they said, okay, now everyone compare the size of your thumbs, and I'm like near the back. So your thumbs up, fingers down won't look like me. But the question of, is it too late to change your technique? So it is harder when you've got a habit that you've built up over a long period of time. But I would say if changing your habit is not just because, or your technique is not just because you want it to look like me, but because it's holding you back from being able to play smoothly or being able to achieve what you want to achieve with the sound that you're making, then it can be worth it. And we know from science that I mentioned the concept of neural plasticity. Our brains can form new pathways. So it is 100% possible. And it's just, how much do you want it? And are you willing to work on that as like your main aim for a little while? So I had to change my habits because my first teacher was really great with musicality, not letting me play flat as a pancake, and also being very relaxed. She got me floating right from the beginning, and I've never had a problem with tension. But she wasn't so good with helping me pluck down into my palms. I was plucking like this. You can see it in some of my early videos, although I took most of them down because it's embarrassing. So I had to work really hard on changing that about my technique. And sure, I was a little bit younger than you are now, but I was, 26, and I wasn't like a spring chicken, and I had to change that habit. So what I did was I did it through when I was playing, because I was already performing with my not perfect technique. I was playing background music at a hotel restaurant, and I would do 3 sessions in a night. So it was like 45 minutes, 45 minutes, 45 minutes. That's a long time. And I decided it was important enough to me to fix the way I was plucking my fingers, that I was going to just play easy pieces I knew really well for the whole night. And the only thing I'm going to think about is plucking my fingers down into my palm. And I did that for weeks, like just focusing on that one thing about my technique, and it changed. So it is possible, but you just have to be focusing on that and be willing to put that above learning a hard piece right now, yeah, because we can't learn something that's difficult and complicated at the same time as fixing something about our technique. We need to be able to do it with either exercises, so that's a great use for exercises because we don't have to think about the notes as much because it's very repetitive, or pieces that are very easy for us, but we're just focusing on changing that one thing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You can do it if you want to, if you really want to. Cool. Okay, I'm going to answer a few more. I'm going to try and whip out a few more of these questions. Let's see. Can you buy the course and watch it later, or do you have to attend it live? So everything is recorded and you can watch it from replays. So if you're desperate for the content and you don't want to wait until we hold the course again. So that was another question someone asked. We are planning to do the course again at some point, but it might only be next year. So if you are desperate to learn now, I'd rather buy it now and watch the replays, but it's better if you can come live. It's going to be so much fun all learning together. But yeah, you can watch just the replays. Someone said, purchasing course question, is there going to be some super special offer if we jump in right away? Yes, there's that fun practice scorecard where you get to see where you fit on the continuum from frustrated practice to transformed practice. So that's what's there for you if you sign up before, I think that's before the end of the weekend, Monday, something very soon. It's in your email. Okay, Jennifer was asking about wanting to practice multiple instruments. Are you here, Jennifer? I'd love
Yes,
to
I
hear.
am.
Yay!
Can you
Talk
hear
to
me?
us.
Yeah.
I'm just grabbing my... Oh no, I don't see my water. I wanted to grab my water, but I'll have later. Yes, Jennifer.
So how do you apply this to multiple instruments? Because technically I'm a violinist and a violist, and then there's harp and there's piano, and believe it or not, voice and accordion. And I know, but they're all very important. And
yes,
if you don't use them, you lose them, right? So how would you suggest, do you have any suggestions for making that time or that commitment, or is it the same? I don't want to do, what did you call it, naive practicing or deliberative practicing? Do you go about it that way? What would you suggest?
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is going to be probably different for different people, because I think we all have a different capacity for being able to work on many things at the same time. Even when it comes to like hobbies, I mean, I find I tend to get like obsessed with one hobby for a while, and then the other one just goes on the back burner. And then, I take a break from this hobby and do the other one for a while. Whereas other people seem to be able to do a little bit of every hobby during the week. So probably different for different people, but I can say what for myself, I would probably struggle to make really good progress with deliberate practice on multiple instruments all at the same time during the same week. And because it really is something where if you're going to do like a short session and try and focus really hard and get results, and then you don't do it again for a week because you're practicing your other instruments, it's not going to add up as quickly and be as motivating as when you do little bits and they all build on each other and you start to really see results. So one thing to consider would be to be okay with your other, like whatever instrument you're really wanting to make progress on right now, let the other ones be on like auto for a while. Like just enjoy playing what you can already play with those pieces, I mean with those instruments, and just do enough that you don't completely forget how to play them, but not intensely trying to actually deliberate practice during that time. That's a suggestion, but it's a tricky one. I don't really know. I don't have an answer, and I think it will depend on your personality and what you find to be satisfying. But it's not wrong to play your instrument. Like you don't always have to be like we were saying, sometimes you play just for fun, sometimes you are practicing, but when you practice, the way to practice effectively is deliberate practice, but it doesn't mean that has to be the only thing you ever do with your instrument. So you might want to just play some other instruments for fun, but be deliberately practicing your harp to really see progress. And then in 6 months' time, you're like, okay, I'm going to let the harp just stay where it is right now. And now I really want to get my accordion playing. Like, excellent. So I'm going to focus on that for a few months. It's a suggestion.
So you don't.
But I think if you did like a little session of each instrument, it might work for you. But I think for me, that would be harder to stay motivated.
Okay.
But there's no right and wrong here, Jennifer. I'm just speculating.
Well, no, but just knowing that 15 minutes can make a difference. It's like that narrows it down. So
sure, if you have an hour to practice, I guess you could practice 4 instruments. The other thing that they do say is that changing between like pieces that you're practicing, or like as soon as you lose focus, to change it up and do something else. There's quite a lot of studies around that, or like evidence that that's really helpful to get good results. So who knows, maybe you must experiment and tell me that it's very possible to progress on 4 instruments at the same time, and that it actually helps you to stay focused because you do 15 minutes on each and then your brain doesn't get bored, and then you can make progress on all 4. That would be awesome. So maybe it's possible.
I'll keep you posted.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Someone's saying, I found this to be possible. Where is that? I must go to the... Janice, I found that to be true about improving with other instruments. After learning a tune with you on Hallelujah, I've significantly improved with my hammered dulcimer, which I've been playing for over 10 years. That's amazing. So there you go. Maybe you'll find that practicing one instrument really helps you to progress with the other instrument as well. Okay, I'm going to just scan over the remaining questions because I know we are officially at the end of our time. Someone asked about the Harp Beginnings program. Is it good for someone who is self-taught? I've only had 1 lesson in person, but I've played for about a year learning on my own. If you feel like you are still getting the basics down, then Harp Beginnings is absolutely for you. And we very much designed it with self-taught people in mind. Oh, sorry, I tried to mute someone and then it ended up asking them to unmute. Sorry about that, David. Yes, so it is very much going to be going to work for people who are self-taught. And okay, I've answered that. Someone's asking, what if I have to go on vacation during that time? Then you just have to watch the replays, but we'll miss you. That has happened with previous programs, and then people get so sad because they're like, oh, I only got up to week 2 and now everyone else is on week 5 and I'm behind. But you can watch the replays.
Christy-Lyn.
Yes.
I have something to share with you.
What did you want to say, David?
Survey of the Wondrous Cross. And
Oh,
I've added
yes.
words to it. And it came from my neighbor who loaned me her Bible from church. She's 87, and she found this in her book for the Bible. So I added words to it, but I don't know how. Oh, you want to see those words that were added?
Is that the one from me? Yes,
Yes,
it is.
this is your. But I added the words to it.
Oh, lovely.
I don't know how to
Someone
send it to
actually
you.
found that in a book, like someone was working on it.
Yes.
And then they gave it to you.
I added it in my PDF, and it was in this book that she loaned me.
That's so cool. Wow, you're coming across learning the harp materials randomly scattered around the church.
So
That's
I would
brilliant.
like to,
Thanks for telling
I
me,
would like to
David.
send it to you somehow. I don't know. Can I send it on the website somehow and send it to you?
Yes, share a photo and tell everyone the story there. I think that'll be funny for people to hear about.
And I've got some other things to share too. Like when you're doing your lessons, I'm able to use my email, send myself an email and copy it. You can just hit the F11 key for full screen and copy all your notes, save them to your own email and email them to yourself, and you have all of your notes without having to write
There
them
we
down.
go. Sounds like you're doing well with technology, David. I'm very impressed.
It's helping me, yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm just scanning to see that there isn't anything I need to cover from. Okay, someone's talking about music theory from some books they were recommending. That's great. Oh, someone asked about what to watch on YouTube for fingering. So I'll talk about that. Okay, yeah, I think we can't cover absolutely everything, but I think we've covered most things. So fingering, I did make a video. I don't know who was it that asked about fingering. I don't know who it was, but I did make a video a few years ago about, I tried to turn fingering into 10 rules of fingering. So, you know, there's always exceptions to the rules, but I did my best. So there is a YouTube video called 10 Rules of Fingering, and it has a download as well. So that's one place you could watch for some specific advice on fingering. But what I've found in my own journey with learning to play the harp and with fingering specifically is that internalizing good fingering happens the best when you're learning pieces with good fingering over and over, and it just gets reinforced over and over until it becomes like a part of you. Like you can only play with good fingering because you've only learned pieces with good fingering, and when it doesn't have good fingering, you can feel the difference. So that's how I really kind of internalized good fingering in my own journey. So my suggestion, if you're early on in your harp journey, to spend more time playing songs that have good fingering written in, you'll actually find that pieces where the teacher, the person who wrote it, has good fingering themselves, you can actually feel that the pieces were written, like the notes are chosen with good fingering in mind. And to do less of the trying to pick out a tune on your own or trying to play from piano music or something like that, because those things don't necessarily set you up with good habits of fingering. So if you can learn harp specific pieces that you know the person who arranged them has good fingering, that's going to really set you up for success with that. But then they were also asking about placing exercises, something I could use for warm-ups or short practice sessions. So some good exercise books that I always recommend are like Grossi's Method for the Harp, or Deborah Frio, I don't know how to say her name, someone needs to tell me at some point, has a good exercises book as well. So those are two that you could look at. Let me see, there's a couple of people in the chat here. And then people talking about 10 strings. You might have to practice some of our pieces with one hand at a time. That's the only thing. Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably it with the questions. I want to make sure that there wasn't anything that people really needed an answer for, but it seems like we've pretty much covered most of it. So I hope that today's sessions made a difference for you. And if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, like it was a lot of information, just remember that there's never a point at which we have to suddenly be able to take in all the stuff and apply it all at once. That's not a thing. Everything is a process. So even if you just take one or two things from today that feel like it's just right for you right now, I want to encourage you, instead of allowing yourself to be overwhelmed by too much information, just pick that one thing and see if you can apply that. And that could really make a difference for you. And let the other things, just let them go. Don't hold it over yourself that you weren't able to apply everything, because all of this is a journey. And when we have a lot of information like this, it's because there's a lot of different people who need a different one piece of information today. It's not because you have to do all of it. Okay. And I think that's it for today. Sorry, I'm just checking in the chat to make sure that I am not missing anything. But thank you for spending this time with me. If you missed any of the sessions, you're going to be getting an email with the replays of these 3 sessions. And if you do want to come to the 6-week program, make sure that you sign up quickly so that you get that fun practice scorecard. But otherwise, sales are going to be open right up until I think a couple of days before the 6-week program start. But thank you for being with me today, and I hope it was helpful, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Lots of love to everybody. Oh, hi Thomas. I see your hand is raised.
Thank you so much. Take care of yourself.
Thank you. I will. I'm going to be resting.
Good. You deserve a good rest.
I have Monday off, so don't worry about me. I'll take Monday off to make up for today.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Lots of love.